Let's proceed to the fourth chapter of the Omega Prime series. The description contains the link to the first 3 chapters if you haven't viewed it yet.
The deeper they ventured into the jungle, the more the air seemed to vibrate with an energy that was almost palpable. The trees towered above them, their twisted branches reaching out like the limbs of some ancient beast. The ground was uneven, and the air thick with humidity, but the group pressed on, driven by a singular purpose: to awaken the power that could turn the tide against the Zeker. Serena, ever the scientist, checked her devices frequently, her brow furrowed in concentration. The biosignatures, they're fluctuating, she said, her voice a mix of excitement and confusion. I've never seen anything like this before. It's as if the planet itself is responding to our presence. Liam's eyes narrowed. He could feel it too, the subtle pulse beneath his feet, the hum in the air that spoke of something far older, far more powerful than anything he had imagined. As they moved deeper, the flora began to change. The once dense jungle opened into a clearing, and the air grew cooler, tinged with an electric charge. Then, without warning, a loud crackling sound broke the silence, and the temperature dropped several degrees. Serena's eyes shot wide with shock. Did anyone else hear that? She whispered, her voice tinged with fear. Liam held up a hand, signaling the group to stop. His senses were on high alert. Everyone, stay sharp. The crackling grew louder, and then, in an instant, the ground in front of them exploded in a violent burst of energy. Massive, glowing tendrils shot up from the earth, wrapping themselves around trees and rocks. The ground quaked, and an eerie blue light spread across the landscape, casting long shadows as the tendrils pulsed in rhythm with the group's quickening heartbeats. "This is a warning," Serena whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the planet's eruption. "The planet, it's alive. It's reacting to us, reacting to something even older, something it wants to keep buried." Before Liam could respond, a deafening roar shook the air, and a massive, armored figure stepped from the shadows. It stood twice the height of a man, its body covered in dark, chitinous armor, with glowing red eyes that burned with an unnatural fire. Its claws, sharp and deadly, were longer than swords, and its leathery wings spread wide in a terrifying display of power. Serena gasped. "What in the hell is that?" Liam's gut clenched. The technology, the design, it was unmistakable. This creature wasn't native to Omega Prime. It was the Zeker, the invaders who had nearly destroyed the Vorkari long ago. And now they had returned. More figures emerged from the shadows behind it, tall, grotesque beings, each more terrifying than the last. Liam's heart sank. These weren't just creatures. They were a force, a living nightmare, brought to life. "Fall back," Marcus shouted, his voice commanding. He and the Marines formed a defensive line, weapons at the ready. "We can't take these things head on." Liam scanned the situation. He wasn't about to let the Zeker destroy everything. Not now, not after all they had been through. "Dr. Kim, get back to the Pioneer with the team," he ordered. "Captain Trent will hold them off." Serena hesitated, but her eyes were filled with a mix of fear and understanding. "This is bigger than we thought," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do it, Dr. Kim," Liam replied, his tone hard. "Now." With no further protest, Serena led the research team back toward the ship, leaving Liam, Marcus, and the Marines to face the terrifying creatures alone. The first Zeker creature lunged, its claws slashing through the air, but Marcus was ready. He fired a burst from his rifle, striking the creature's armored chest. It howled in pain, but barely flinched. Liam tightened his grip on his sidearm, eyes scanning for weaknesses. They couldn't let these creatures take Omega Prime. Not without a fight. But then the ground shook again, this time more violently. The rumble echoed up from deep beneath the surface, and Liam realized, with a sickening jolt, that the planet's war was just beginning. The true battle for Omega Prime had started. The air was thick with the scent of burnt ozone, the ground beneath their feet rumbling as if the planet itself were alive and angry. Alien roars cut through the chaos, guttural growls reverberating from creatures that seemed more nightmare than reality. Their eyes burned with unnatural fire, and their claws, long and razor-sharp, slashed through the air, leaving deep scars in the earth. It was a primal, unrelenting force, staking its claim on Omega Prime. Liam's heart raced, but his training kept him centered. The pulse of combat surged through him, but he remained focused, every thought aimed at survival. He raised his sidearm, scanning the surroundings for any advantage. The alien creatures were massive, built for destruction, their armor nearly impenetrable. But they weren't invincible. "Form a line." Captain Marcus Trent's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Take down the lead creature first. We get it down, and the rest will follow." Liam nodded. His mind raced through tactics. The numbers were overwhelming, but if they focused on one target, they might be able to slow the tide. He signaled his team, spreading them out to use the terrain to their advantage. The Marines took cover behind trees, boulders, and alien rocks, ready to strike. The first alien charged, its claws slicing through the air with terrifying speed. One of the Marines fired, but the bullets bounced off the creature's thick exoskeleton, leaving no mark. It barely slowed. "We need to aim for the joints," Liam shouted, realizing that the creature's armored hide was almost impenetrable. "Look for the gaps its underarms, knees, and elbows." The Marines adjusted their aim, focusing their fire on the soft spots. Liam fired. His shots hit but did little more than irritate the creature. It roared in pain, but its rage only grew stronger. Marcus was already in motion, his heavy assault rifle thundering with precision. He struck the alien's knee joint, forcing the beast to stagger. It howled, furious, and retaliated with wild slashes of its claws. The ground shook with every strike. The battle became a brutal symphony of weapons fire and alien shrieks. But for every beast they wounded, two more emerged from the shadows. The sheer numbers of the invaders were beginning to tell. The Marines were pushed back, struggling to hold the line. Liam's mind raced. They needed a way to stop the flood. He scanned the battlefield, searching for an opening, any chance to turn the tide. In the distance, he saw Dr. Serena Kim crouching behind a boulder, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her device. She hadn't left the battlefield. She was gathering data, the very information they needed. "What's she doing?" Marcus gritted out, reloading as another alien charged. "She's analyzing the situation," Liam said, his voice tense. "We need that data. She's figuring out what we're up against." But before they could make any more sense of it, a low hum vibrated through the ground. The aliens froze, their heads snapping toward the sound, as though they sensed something too. Then the ground shook again harder. The trees trembled, and the very air seemed to crackle with energy. Liam's eyes widened as a massive shape began to rise from the earth itself. It was a ship, a massive, black, metallic structure partially buried beneath the soil of Omega Prime. Its hull was etched with glowing symbols that pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly energy. The ship was ancient, far older than anything they'd seen. "This is it," Serena's voice crackled over the comms, filled with awe. "It's what the planet's been hiding. This is the source of the disturbance." Liam's mind raced as he took in the sight of the vessel. He looked back at the advancing creatures. The ship was the key of that, he was sure. Whatever it contained, the aliens were protecting it with everything they had. "They're not just here for the planet," Liam muttered, his thoughts racing. "They're here for whatever's inside that ship." Suddenly, the creatures surged forward, charging with renewed aggression, their eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity. They were moving toward the ship, their every step calculated, as if they were drawn to it. "We can't let them reach it," Liam shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. "Move out now." Marcus rallied the Marines, pushing forward to hold the line. But it was like fighting a tidal wave. The aliens were relentless, pouring forward like a flood, their power unmatched. The Marines' weapons slowed them, but only just. It was as though the planet itself had joined the fight on the side of the invaders. Liam felt the weight of the situation. These creatures weren't invaders, they were the guardians of Omega Prime's dark secret. And whatever lay inside that ship was more dangerous than anything they had encountered. We need to fall back, Marcus called, his voice tight with frustration. But Liam wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. He glanced at the advancing ship, then back at the creatures. They couldn't afford to let them reach it. We're not falling back, Liam said, his voice low and fierce. We're pushing forward. We can't let them win. The battle raged on, each moment more brutal than the last. But Liam knew, deep in his gut, that the real fight was just beginning. The battle dragged on, hours blending into each other in a blur of gunfire, alien roars, and the crackling of energy weapons. The Marines were on the edge, exhausted and surrounded. For the first time, Liam could feel the creeping sensation of defeat. The numbers were too great, the pressure too immense. And then there was the hum, a deep, resonating sound that seemed to come from the very core of the planet. It was louder now, vibrating through the bones of everyone on the battlefield. The ship, whatever it was alive, and it was waking. Liam pushed through the smoke and debris, heading toward the heart of the ship. The landscape around them had become a war zone, the air thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and the sharp sting of ozone. Liam, they're getting closer. Serena's voice came through the comms, her tone frantic. They're almost to the control chamber. If they reach it, everything's lost. You need to stop them. Liam's heart pounded. He wasn't going to let that happen, not after everything they had fought for. He pushed past the wounded Marines, ignoring the rising dread in his gut. The ship loomed ahead, dark and foreboding, its ancient runes glowing brighter with every passing second. Marcus's voice crackled through his comm. We're holding the line, but we can't keep this up much longer. We need to stop them from reaching the ship. Liam reached the base of the massive vessel, studying its surface. The glowing symbols were mesmerizing, alien in every sense. There was no way they could break through its defenses without understanding how it worked. And time was running out. I've got an idea. Serena's voice broke through his thoughts, her tone determined. I think I can interface with the ship. It's a biomechanical construct, like a living organism. If I can link with it, I might be able to disable its weapons. Liam's pulse quickened. Do it, he ordered. Now! Serena didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the ship, her device held high. As she neared the hull, glowing tendrils began to extend from the surface, wrapping around her device and merging with her. Liam watched, holding his breath, as her device seemed to come alive in her hands. It's working, Serena gasped. I'm in, just a little more. Liam turned, scanning the battlefield. The alien creatures were closing in, relentless and unstoppable. He gritted his teeth and held his position. They had to hold out just a little longer. Then, a surge of energy filled the air. The ship's hum intensified, then abruptly ceased. The ground shook violently beneath their feet. The alien creatures froze in place, their movements sluggish and disoriented. Their eyes, once burning with rage, dimmed. We did it, Serena breathed, her voice tinged with exhaustion. The ship's deactivated. It's severed from the control system. Liam allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But the war wasn't over yet. The battle was won. But the war for Omega Prime was far from finished. Captain, report. Liam barked. We're holding on, but it won't last, Marcus responded grimly. We need to move. We can't let them regroup. Liam nodded, his mind already calculating their next move. The battle for Omega Prime wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but they had the edge, and they weren't going to waste it. Wow, looks like you were done with the 4th chapter. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.